This is Planning Your I Do from You Had Me at I Do. For over a quarter century, You Had Me at I Do has been helping couples say, I do. We bring more than 400 weddings of real-world experience as an officiant and a DJ, and this podcast is packed with what you, as the bride and groom, need to know, what you're wondering about, and what's keeping you up at night. No judgment, no fluff, just real answers and ideas for real planning. Here's today's episode.
You know, it's 2 a.m, and you're just lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling.
The classic 2 a.m. spiral.
Right, exactly. The glow of your phone is just illuminating the sheer, unadulterated panic on your face. And you are agonizing, literally losing sleep, just tossing and turning over whether you are morally obligated to invite your mother's friend, Susan.
Oh, Susan. It's always a Susan.
Always. A woman who babysat you, like, exactly one time when you were 4 years old.
Right.
You don't even remember what Susan looks like.
Okay.
I mean, if she walked into a coffee shop right now, you would have absolutely no idea who she was.
None. Zero recognition.
Exactly. But suddenly, sitting in your bed in the middle of the night, the entire success of your future happiness just, like, seems to hinge entirely on whether or not Susan gets a piece of dry chicken at your wedding reception.
It is so real. We have all been there, or, we've sat on the couch with a glass of wine and watched someone we desperately love go through it. You start out looking at a harmless Excel spreadsheet, and within, 20 minutes, you are questioning everything you know about loyalty, family obligations, and just your very identity as a quote-unquote good person.
Oh, totally. It gets so deep so fast.
It does, and it's all because of this intense, crushing weight of trying to manage the expectations of basically everyone you've ever met.
Exactly, and that is the mission of our deep dive today.
Oh.
We are tackling the absolute #1 thing that couples lose sleep over.
The big one.
The big one. Spoiler alert for anyone newly engaged listening right now. It is not the dress.
No.
It is not the vows. It is not whether the napkins are, eggshell or icru. It is the guest list.
Yeah, that's the real stress test.
And to guide us through this complete emotional minefield today, we're pulling from a phenomenal source. We are breaking down the core strategies from Planning Your I Do by Chris Truitt.
Which is such a rich text to explore because, honestly, it is completely devoid of the fluffy aspirational theory you usually find in, wedding magazines.
Right, it's not just pretty Pinterest boards.
Yeah. Not at all. We are talking about insights from someone who has been an officiant and a DJ for 26 years.
Wow, 26 years.
Yeah, he has been on the ground, behind the scenes, literally holding the microphone in the room for more than 400 weddings.
400. That's a lot of chicken dinners.
So much chicken. But he has seen the exact psychological mechanics of how these guest list decisions play out in real time. He's seen the beautiful, intimate, tear-jerking celebrations, and he has witnessed the chaotic, resentment-filled stress fests where the couple doesn't even get to, eat a single bite of food.
That is so tragic. And I can promise you by the time we finish this deep dive, you are going to walk away with a toolkit.
A very necessary toolkit.
Yes. We are building you a mathematical, emotional, and highly tactical toolkit to conquer guest list guilt. We're going to show you how to trim that list without feeling like a monster. And far more importantly, without accidentally cutting off the people who actually belong in that room.
Right, which is the ultimate goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But before we can physically start axing names off a piece of paper, we have to talk about the emotions. We have to look at the psychology.
We really do.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Why does the guest list feel so incredibly heavy? Why does it feel like actual life or death?
Well, what's fascinating here is that if you really look at the anatomy of guest list anxiety, the list isn't really about the guests at all.
Wait, it's not?
No, it is a physical proxy for how we view our relationships and our standing in our community. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it actually taps into evolutionary psychology.
Wait, evolutionary psychology, like caveman brain stuff.
Absolutely caveman brain stuff. Think about it. For the vast majority of human history, to exclude someone from your inner circle or, to be excluded yourself was literally a matter of social survival.
Wow. Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right. If you alienated your tribe, you were essentially cast out into the wilderness alone. You wouldn't survive. So when you sit down with your partner and say, we can't invite my second cousin, Your modern, rational brain knows it's just a budget issue.
Right, it's just money.
But your primal brain is sounding alarm bells, telling you that you are severing a tribal bond and risking social death. The stakes feel incredibly high because our brains are hardwired to keep the community intact at all costs.
That is, wow. I have never thought about it like that, but it makes so much sense.
Right. Choosing a dress or a cake flavor, those are just matters of personal taste. But choosing who is invited to witness a major life transition, that triggers these deep-seated human anxieties about inclusion and exclusion.
It's basically primal fear disguised as wedding planning.
Exactly.
I always think of guest list guilt as this uninvited plus one.
Yeah.
It just shows up to every single planning session you have, pulls up a chair and starts whispering in your ear that if you say no to someone, it means you're fundamentally selfish.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. It's this phantom presence that just drains the joy out of what is supposed to be a happy season.
And that uninvited plus one is feeding you a very specific, very false narrative. This is where cognitive behavioral therapy concepts really apply to wedding planning. We have to, actively identify the false stories we are telling ourselves.
Because the stories feel so true in the moment.
They really do. And the text highlights a major myth that drives this guilt. The idea that a quote-unquote good person invites everyone, that inclusivity at all costs is the ultimate moral virtue.
Oh, yes. The idea that if you have a big heart, you just must have a massive guest list.
Which inevitably leads to this other really toxic myth that love equals a bigger list.
Right.
That the sheer scale of the celebration, like the literal headcount, somehow validates the scale of the love you have for your partner. Like if only 50 people show up, well, maybe this marriage isn't a big deal.
Which is a complete distortion of reality. It's so backwards.
It is. The reality check here is incredibly grounding. Your wedding is not a high school reunion.
Thank goodness.
Right. It is not a networking event for your parents' golf buddies. It is a deeply intimate celebration of a very specific commitment, and it should only be shared with the people who actually belong in that room, the people who are going to support that marriage for the next 40, 50 years.
So to everyone listening right now, if you are feeling that crushing weight in your chest when you look at your spreadsheet of names, we want to validate that. The guilt you feel is very, very real.
It's a physiological response, yeah.
It is. But here is where it gets really interesting. The story driving that guilt is fundamentally flawed. You are not a bad person for having boundaries. You aren't exiling anyone to the wilderness. You are just hosting an event.
Just an event.
Which brings us to the ultimate boundary. If guilt is a terrible compass for event planning, which we've clearly established at Fine, it's what are we actually supposed to use to navigate?
Math. We use math.
Just math.
Because numbers don't have emotions, they don't hold grudges, and they definitely don't carry generational trauma.
Moving from emotional quicksand to the solid, unfeeling concrete of mathematics. I love it.
It's the best way.
But I have to push back here. Talk to me about how this math actually works, because I know what you, the listener, might be thinking right now. Doesn't saying, well, we can only afford 75 people feel a bit, cold, almost stingy.
That's the fear, yeah.
Especially if, you technically have a credit card with some room on it.
Right.
Or you could theoretically take out a loan, or maybe you and your partner agree to just eat ramen and cut back on groceries for a year just to squeeze in another 2 tables of extended family. The wedding industrial complex kind of tells us we're supposed to sacrifice everything for this one day.
This raises such an important question, and it is the exact trap so many couples fall into. We have been conditioned by that very industry to believe that applying financial logic to a deeply emotional event is somehow cheapening the romance of it.
Like if you put a price tag on it, you don't care enough.
Exactly. But the text makes a brilliant pivot here. This math isn't cold at all. It is incredibly freeing.
Freeing? Wait, how is being told you can't afford this freeing? It sounds super restrictive.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but it's freeing because it takes this agonizing emotional tug of war and transforms it into a practical, unarguable reality.
Okay, walk me through that.
The formula is beautifully simple. Guest count multiplied by the per head cost equals what we'll call your honest ceiling.
Honest ceiling, I like that phrase.
It's great. That is the absolute financial limit of what you can comfortably afford to host without jeopardizing your financial future. If your budget comfortably supports 75 people, you have zero moral obligation to invite 120. You literally cannot do it.
Wow, okay.
You are trading a porous, subjective emotional boundary which everyone in your family will try to argue with and guilt trip you over for a physical financial boundary, which is absolute.
Okay, I see what you mean now. The honest ceiling, it changes the conversation entirely. It's no longer I don't love you enough to invite you. It becomes the ceiling of this room is physically too low. The math will not allow it.
Exactly. The math takes a blame.
It shifts the blame in a very healthy way off of your character and onto the reality of the constraints. But to make this work, the order of operations has to be crucial, right? I feel like most people get this entirely backward.
Absolutely vital. The data from hundreds of weddings shows a really clear pattern. Couples who start with the number instead of the names finish planning with significantly less regret.
You have to establish the honest ceiling first.
Before you ever write down a single name.
Which makes total sense, because if you start with a blank piece of paper and, a glass of wine, and just start writing down every single person you've ever met and loved, you're going to hit 200 names in 10 minutes.
Oh, easily. It's so easy to write a name.
And then you take that massive list of 200 beloved people and try to stretch a budget built for 75 over them. It's like trying to pull a twin-size fitted sheet over a king-size mattress.
That is a great visual.
Right. You're just tearing the fabric of your wedding apart, compromising on the food, the venue, the experience, just to cram people in. And then you end up having to make agonizing, painful cuts later in the process when you're already exhausted and stressed out.
And that is exactly when the resentment builds.
Yeah.
Starting with the names and hoping the budget will magically stretch is just a recipe for disaster. It hurts so much more to revoke a hypothetical invitation in your mind than it does to be fiercely intentional from the very start.
So what does this all mean for the mindset of the couple? How do you actually internalize this concept when your Aunt Carol is giving you the side eye at Thanksgiving because her book club friends aren't invited?
Well, it requires a specific shift in how you frame the event to yourselves, first and foremost. The cognitive reframe is this: we wish we could invite everyone, and we're keeping our celebration intimate so we can actually spend time with the people there.
Oh, I love that wording.
Notice the subtle power in it. It is not an apology. It is a statement of values. You are prioritizing quality of connection over quantity of attendees.
We wish we could invite everyone, but we are prioritizing spending actual time with the people who are there. That is so powerful because it reminds you of the physical reality of a wedding day.
Right.
If you did invite all 200 people, you wouldn't even get to speak to half of them. You'd just be doing a frantic drive-by wave at their table while your hot dinner turns into a block of ice.
It's true. You are protecting your own experience of the day.
Exactly. You are allocating your limited resources, both your money and your energy, on that day.
Precisely.
So, okay. Let's say we have our honest ceiling. We've done the math. We looked at our savings, and our number is exactly 100 people.
Okay, good number.
How do we actually categorize the complex web of human relationships in our lives to fit that number without feeling like we're, grading our friends on a curve?
This is where we bring in the professional event planner's secret weapon, the A-list and B-list strategy.
Ooh.
Now, I know the term B-list has a bit of a negative connotation in pop culture, like it sounds like a reality TV cast. But in the context of event planning, it is a highly functional, entirely safe and sane way to manage capacity.
Yes, let's redefine these tiers right now, because I don't want anyone listening to feel like they're putting their loved ones in a reject pile. That's where the guilt creeps back in.
Yeah.
So how do we objectively define the A-list?
The A-list is your absolute, undeniable non-negotiables. These are the people whose absence would genuinely deeply hurt your heart on that day.
Like immediate family.
Immediate family, your absolute closest ride or die friends. The people you literally cannot imagine standing at an altar without. The instruction is incredibly clear. You write them down first. You count them. And that becomes your unshakable core.
And then there's the B-list. And I want to speak directly to you listening right now because this is vital. The B-list is not an afterthought. It is not the island of misfit toys.
Definitely not.
These are people you genuinely, truly care about. Extended family you really enjoy, friends from college you've somewhat lost touch with but still adore, colleagues who make your Tuesday mornings bearable.
Yeah, great people.
The only reason they are on the B-list is that you simply cannot include them if the A-list fills the room. It is a matter of physics and finances, not a measure of affection.
That's a crucial distinction. Space and budget are the only things keeping them off the primary list. But, and this is a massive but that we really need to highlight, executing this requires a very specific, safe strategy. If you do this wrong, it will blow up in your face spectacularly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Listen closely, because this is the only safe way to execute an A-list, B-list strategy without destroying your relationships or your bank account.
Pay attention to this part.
First, you budget for your absolute maximum affordable capacity. that honest ceiling we just talked about. Let's stick with our example of 100 people. You secure the funding for exactly 100 plates, 100 chairs, period. Second, you send your A-list invitations out early. Give them plenty of time. Third, and I know this is the hardest part for anxious planners who just want to check boxes, you wait.
You do nothing.
You do nothing. You sit on your hands and you wait for the inevitable declines to roll in, because they will. People have travel conflicts, they get pregnant, they have unavoidable work trips. Finally, and only finally, you send out the B-list invitations based strictly on the actual physical space that is opened up from those A-list declines.
The absolute key here is reality-based planning. You are budgeting for your maximum capacity, and you are waiting for confirmed declines before you invite the next tier. What you are never, ever doing is banking on lucky cancellations to save your budget. You plan your A-list assuming 100% of them will say yes and show up.
Yes. Let me paint a picture of what not to do. Say your A-list is 80 people. You must budget as if 80 people are showing up. I've seen couples do this insane mental gymnastics where they say, well, our A-list is 80, but usually 20% of people decline, so really it's only 64 people.
That's so dangerous.
It is. And then they say, which means we can go ahead and invite 16 people from the B-list right now. No, that is how you end up in tears, begging your caterer to find extra tables at the last minute and completely draining your emergency fund when all 80 A-listers decide to RSVP, yes.
It's a dangerous gamble, and it almost never pays off. You have to wait for the mathematical reality of a decline before you open up a slot. And there's another non-negotiable rule here. Discretion is paramount. You must be completely discreet.
Oh, yes.
You never, ever tell someone they are on a B-list. You don't joke about it over drinks. You don't hint at it. You don't say, we're hoping space opens up for you. If they are invited, they are a cherished guest. The tier system is strictly for your internal logistics. It is not for public consumption.
So true. Nobody wants to feel like they were called up from the minor leagues at the last second. They just want to celebrate you. Okay, so we've got the math, we've got the safe tiered strategy. But there is a massive roadblock that I know so many couples hit when trying to finalize that core A-list. What happens when one partner's immediate family takes up 80% of those affordable seats?
Yes. This brings us to a deeply ingrained cultural myth that we have to dismantle.
What's it?
The idea that, quote-unquote, his side and her side, or each partner's respective side, must have the exact same number of guests.
The myth of perfect symmetry. It's like we treat the aisle of the ceremony like the fulcrum of a teeter-totter on a playground.
Right.
If there are 40 people sitting on the left side, there must be exactly 40 people sitting on the right side, or the whole wedding is going to physically flip over.
Yeah.
But forcing that artificial balance completely throws off the genuine weight of your real-life relationships.
Artificial balance is exactly what it is. And if we look at the history of weddings, this idea of equal sides comes from a time when marriages were largely transactional arrangements between two families.
Like a business deal.
Essentially, yes. It was a merging of estates, or a peace treaty. You needed equal representation to show equal power. But today, marriages aren't property transfers, and fairness does not mean a 50-50 headcount split.
Right. Because let's think about a real-world scenario. Let's say one partner is an only child. Their parents are only children. They have a tiny, intimate, extended family.
Very common.
But the other partner is one of 5 kids, and they have 40 first cousins who they literally see every single Sunday for a massive family dinner. If you force equal numbers in that scenario, it's actually deeply unfair.
Exactly. Equal numbers in that scenario would force the partner with the small family to literally scour their address book, desperately inviting near strangers, old college roommates they haven't spoken to in a decade, just to fill their arbitrary quota of seats.
Just paying for plates for people they barely know.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the partner with the massive, close-knit family is forced to make agonizing cuts, leaving people they deeply love and interact with regularly off the list entirely. It penalizes one partner for having a big family and forces the other to dilute their guest list with acquaintances.
Which is tragic. You're paying, what, $150 a plate for your partner's old gym buddy who they haven't texted since 2019, while your favorite cousin is sitting at home looking at Instagram photos of your bouquet. Makes no sense.
None at all.
So, if fairness isn't a strict 50-50 numerical split, how do we redefine what fair actually means when building this joint list?
Fair means agreeing on a shared standard. It means you and your partner sit down, look at each other, and agree on the criteria for who gets invited, completely regardless of whose side they are on.
Okay, so what does a shared standard look like?
For example, your shared standard might be, we only invite people we have both spent time with as a couple in the last 12 months. Or we only invite people we are genuinely close to, with absolutely zero invites based purely on guilt or family obligation.
Oh, I love that. You apply the rule equally, not the numbers.
Precisely. You protect each other's absolute must-invites. You apply the shared criteria strictly and ruthlessly across both families. And you agree on the total financial cap together. You are building one unified guest list as a team, not negotiating a hostage exchange between two separate factions.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. That sounds beautiful in theory, sitting on the couch with your fiancé and a nice charcuterie board.
It always sounds nice in theory.
But what happens when that spreadsheet reality crashes into the real world? Say a parent swoops in, looks at the list and says, wait a minute, the Smith family has 50 people coming and our family only has 20. This is embarrassing. What will the neighbors think? We need equal representation. How do you handle that intense parental pressure, especially if they're contributing financially?
This is where we transition from the theory to the actual execution, and you have to rely on a very specific boundary-setting script. When parents demand equal representation, you cannot get pulled into a debate about the numbers.
Because you'll lose.
Because it never ends. The response is this: we're building one guest list as a couple, based on our budget and our closest relationships. We're not counting sides.
We're not counting sides. It's brilliant. It gently reminds the parent that a wedding is the merging of two lives into one new unified family unit. The sides are gone. There is no us versus them. It's just us now.
It reinforces the boundary without being overly aggressive. It states the reality: our budget and our actual lived relationships are the deciding factors here, not optics or outdated family politics.
Which brings us to perhaps the most terrifying part of this entire process for most people.
Setting the boundaries.
Yes, having these rules in your head, having the shared standard with your partner, all of that is great. But eventually you actually have to open your mouth and speak these boundaries out loud.
Yeah.
To a disappointed aunt, to a pushy friend, to a coworker who just assumes they're coming.
It's unavoidable.
Let's bring this into the real world and talk scripts, because the source material provides some absolute gold for navigating these specific, hard conversations.
The guiding psychological principle for all of these hard conversations is a concept of being brief and kind.
Brief and kind.
Yes. When we are anxious, when we anticipate conflict, our natural human instinct is to over-explain. We want the other person to fully understand our pain, to see our spreadsheets, to validate our logic. We think if we just explain it enough, they'll say, oh, I totally understand why I'm excluded.
Right. You just want them to agree with you.
But over-explaining usually just backfires completely.
Because it invites a negotiation. If you give someone 10 reasons why they aren't invited, they don't feel empathy. They just view those 10 reasons as 10 obstacles they need to argue their way around.
Exactly.
Oh, it's too expensive. Don't worry. I'll pay for my own plate. Oh, the venue's too small. I'll stand in the back. You cannot win a debate that you shouldn't be having in the first place.
You really can't.
So let's look at some real-world scenarios. How about the water cooler situation? The assumer. This is the person at work, or maybe in your broader social circle, who casually comes up to you and says, I can't wait for the wedding. I already bought a dress. But they're absolutely 100% not invited.
Yep.
How do you handle that without wanting to sink into the floor?
This happens all the time, and the script is designed to be clean and de-escalating. You say, we're so grateful for your love and support. We're keeping the wedding really small, around 75 people, and we're focusing purely on close family. We'll miss having you there, and we'd love to celebrate with you afterward.
It's so clean. Let's break down why that works. First, you start with gratitude. You acknowledge their excitement.
Right.
Second, you immediately pivot to the honest ceiling we talked about earlier by stating it's a small wedding with a specific hard number. That removes the personal rejection.
It makes it about the room, not them.
Exactly. Third, you define the criteria close family. And then finally, you offer a low-stakes olive branch, like getting a drink or coffee after the honeymoon. It leaves their dignity intact while firmly closing the door.
Exactly. You are controlling the narrative without being defensive. Now, the next scenario is usually much stickier. The pushy parent.
Oh, boy.
This is when a parent comes to you with a piece of paper containing a list of their golf buddies or distant relatives you've never met, and they demand you add them to your finalized list.
Oh, this one is so tough. Because often there are decades of family dynamics at play, and sometimes they are contributing financially, which makes the power dynamic incredibly muddy. But assuming you and your partner are holding the line on your honest ceiling, how do you handle it?
The script here requires a tactic called redirection. You say we've finalized our guest list based on our budget. We're not able to add more people, but we would love your help with. And then you immediately pivot to a specific high visibility role, like giving a welcome speech, manning the welcome table, or organizing the extended family photos.
Redirection. It's like dealing with a toddler, honestly.
It kind of is.
You say no to the dangerous thing, but you immediately hand them a shiny, safe toy to distract them. By asking for their help with a specific, visible role, you are validating their desire to be involved and important on the day without compromising your headcount.
It addresses the root psychological need. Usually, a parent pushing for massive additions isn't doing it to ruin your budget. They are doing it because they want to feel proud, they want to show off this incredible milestone to their peers, or they are feeling a general loss of control as you transition into your own family unit.
That makes a lot of sense.
Giving them a meaningful, authoritative task helps fulfill that underlying emotional need within the boundaries you have already established.
That is brilliant. Okay, the next scenario. This is the one that makes my palms sweat just thinking about it. The direct confrontation.
The hardest one.
Someone explicitly asks you, to your face, or in a very passive-aggressive text message, why wasn't I invited?
This is where people usually crumble entirely. The pressure is immense, but the advice here is uncompromising. The script is, we had to make some really hard choices to keep the day intimate. It wasn't about how much we care about you, and then you stop talking.
Wait, you just stop.
You stop talking, you embrace the silence. Silence is not rudeness in this context. It is the ultimate boundary.
Let's actually try it. Let's role play this because I need to feel how uncomfortable this is. I'll be the angry friend who just found out I didn't make the cut. Ready?
Ready.
Hey, I saw the invites went out. I didn't get one. Did it get lost in the mail or did you seriously not invite me?
We had to make some really hard choices to keep the day intimate. It wasn't about how much we care about you.
And then I just say nothing.
Absolutely nothing. You just look at them.
Oh my gosh. The instinct to fill that dead air is overwhelming. I'm sitting here as the host knowing it's a role play, and I still want you to start babbling about the venue fire codes or how expensive the chicken is or how your partner's family took up all the spots. It feels physically uncomfortable to let that silence hang there.
And that discomfort is exactly why it works. If we connect this to the broader picture of human psychology, nature abhors a vacuum, and conversational silence is a vacuum.
It sucks you right in.
It does. When you endure that silence, you are projecting authority over your own decision. You are standing firm in your choice. If you break the silence and start babbling and making excuses, you are projecting guilt.
You're showing weakness.
You are subconsciously signaling to them that you know you did something wrong and you're trying to defend it. By delivering the line kindly and then holding the silence, you communicate that the decision is final, it is not up for review, and no further debate will be entertained.
That is so powerful. It's going to feel like an absolute century of silence, but you have to hold it. You have to let them sit with the reality of the boundary.
Exactly.
Okay, the last scenario isn't about confronting someone else. It's about confronting yourself. It's the internal guilt. It's when you're lying awake at 2 a.m. again, despite having done the math and held the boundaries.
The script for internal guilt is a private mantra that you and your partner need to remind yourselves of constantly. I wish we could invite everyone we love. We can't. And that doesn't mean we're bad people. It means we're being honest about what we can host well.
Well, we can host well. I love the pragmatism of that. Because if you cave to the guilt and you cram 200 people into a space meant for 100, and you run out of appetizers in 10 minutes, and the bartender is totally overwhelmed and the lines are 30 minutes long, you aren't hosting anyone well.
No one is having a good time.
You're actually doing a huge disservice to the people who did show up to celebrate you. You're sacrificing the experience of the A-list just to appease the B-list.
Exactly. You are spreading your resources so thin that everyone suffers. And there is a crucial warning that applies to all of these scenarios, whether you're dealing with internal guilt or external pressure. To survive these conversations and hold these boundaries, you and your partner absolutely must present a united front. The text explicitly warns against falling into a good cop, bad cop dynamic.
Oh, I've seen this happen. Where one partner doesn't want to deal with the conflict, so they just throw their fiancé under the bus. Oh, I totally wanted to invite you, but my partner is being super strict about the budget. Their side is taking up all the spots. I'm so sorry.
Precisely. If one of you plays the bad guy, Or worse, if one of you quietly caves and adds names behind the other's back just to avoid conflict with your own family, you are introducing a profound level of poison into your relationship before the marriage even officially begins.
It's a huge red flag.
You are showing that you prioritize avoiding discomfort with your extended family over honoring an agreement with your future spouse. You will fight about it for months. You must decide on the criteria together, communicate the decision together, and back each other up unconditionally, even when it's uncomfortable.
It is genuinely your first real test as a married team. How you handle the guest list sets the precedent for how you will handle in-laws, finances, and boundaries for the rest of your lives.
It really does.
So let's look at the aftermath. You've used the math, you've built the lists, you've held the boundaries, you've endured the awkward silences, and delivered the scripts. But making the actual physical cuts from your life still stings. How do you know in your gut if you are making the right cut?
This is where we have to look at the reality of trimming, because if you actually look at the anatomy of guest list cuts, they aren't all created equal. You have to categorize the collateral damage. Some cuts are just mildly uncomfortable social hiccups, while others carry profound emotional weight.
Right, there are levels to this. Like cutting a coworker who you see in the break room every day, you chat about TV shows, but you would never in a million years call them if you had a flat tire on the highway.
Exactly. That is a low-stakes cut. It might be mildly awkward for a week in the office after the wedding when people are talking about it, but long-term, it is absolutely fine. Your professional life will survive.
Then there's the no children cut. Having an adults-only wedding, this is always a massive hot-button issue online. It sparks endless debates.
It does, but practically speaking, a child-free wedding is a completely valid choice. The issue isn't whether you do it or not. The issue is how you execute the boundary. You must be relentlessly consistent.
You can't play favorites.
You cannot make exceptions for your one favorite well-behaved niece while banning everyone else's toddlers. That breeds instant resentment. And you must communicate it very early so parents have ample time to arrange childcare or politely decline.
Consistency is everything there. The rule has to apply to the room, not the person. And then, of course, there are the budget cuts, which we've talked about at length, but it bears repeating. Cutting people solely because your budget requires it is not a moral failure. It is incredibly responsible planning. It is adulting at its absolute finest.
But then we get to the most difficult category of all, family conflict.
Yes. I want to spend some time here. What does this all mean when the cut isn't a third cousin or a casual coworker, but a sibling or a parent? When the cut isn't about the budget at all, but about toxicity, deep estrangement, or unresolved trauma. I can imagine the pressure to invite a toxic family member just to keep the peace is astronomical.
The advice here is profound, and it requires a lot of introspection. You should not make this call from a place of suffocating guilt, like, I have to invite them, or I'm a bad daughter, and equally important, you should not make it out of spite or retaliation. You have to look at the relationship with clear, objective eyes and ask yourself one singular defining question.
Which is?
Does their presence help or hurt the day you want to have?
Wow. Does their presence help or hurt the day? I want to push back a little, though. That sounds almost incredibly ruthless. If I cut my own sister because she's notoriously dramatic and toxic, isn't that going to destroy my family dynamic forever?
Yeah.
How do you weigh a peaceful wedding day against decades of future Thanksgiving dinners being completely ruined?
It's a fantastic question, and it highlights the immense gravity of the choice. It is a heavy decision, but you have to weigh the reality of their behavior against the purpose of the day. If their history shows that they consistently bring chaos, manipulation, or emotional abuse to family gatherings, their presence at your wedding is not going to magically transform them into a supportive sibling.
They're just going to bring the chaos to the wedding.
It will likely amplify their behavior because of the high stakes. You are not ruining future Thanksgivings by setting a boundary. You are protecting the foundational celebration of your marriage. It requires immense courage, but sometimes excluding someone is the only way to safeguard the emotional integrity of the event.
That perfectly sets up my favorite part of this entire deep dive. There's a story from the source material that just struck such a deep chord with me. Chris shares an anecdote about a specific bride he worked with who had to make a massive, highly controversial cut regarding her family. She decided not to invite a huge swath of her extended family members. And why? Because she had never even met most of them.
Which happens a lot more than you'd think.
They were her parents' connections, her parents' colleagues, and distant relatives, not hers.
And naturally, knowing how these dynamics work, The family was furious.
Oh, absolutely furious. The family was upset. Her parent was highly uncomfortable and embarrassed for a while. There was palpable tension in the months leading up to the day. But listen to the result of her holding that line. Because she held that boundary, and she didn't cave to the intense pressure to invite dozens of strangers to appease her parents at her actual wedding, she had room to breathe.
What a concept.
Right. She actually got to sit at a table surrounded by her closest friends. She ate her meal while it was still hot. She looked around the room and knew every single face smiling back at her.
The physical and emotional realities of a fiercely curated guest list.
Exactly. And afterwards, she told Chris, "I was terrified to send those no's. The guilt almost ate me alive, but I'm so glad I did." And the kicker, the relationship with her parent survived the discomfort. The world didn't end. But most importantly, the wedding actually felt like hers.
That is the core rule of trimming, summarized in one perfect story. Trimming a guest list hurts the most when it's random, reactive, or done in a panic to please other people. You feel entirely out of control. But it hurts the least. In fact, it can feel deeply empowering when you can stand tall and say, this is our number, these are our priorities, and we made the absolute best choices we could within the mathematical and emotional constraints of our reality.
It is the profound difference between feeling like a helpless victim of your guest list and being the intentional architect of it.
Which brings us to the hard truth, the ultimate reality check that we have to leave everyone with. And it's something every single person planning an event, big or small, needs to hear, accept, and internalize. You will not invite everyone that everyone thinks you should invite. Someone, somewhere, is going to be disappointed.
It's inevitable.
It is a universal guarantee. It is mathematically, financially, and socially impossible to please everyone.
It's like gravity. You can't fight it. Someone's feelings are going to be a little bruised. But what you can control, and what this entire conversation has been about, is empowering yourself to make peace with a hard decision, rather than carrying unnecessary, suffocating guilt down the aisle with you. You get to choose your hard.
Choose your hard. I like that.
Is it hard to have a tough boundary-setting conversation with an aunt? Yes, it's very hard. But is it harder to look out at your reception on one of the most important days of your life and feel completely disconnected from a room full of near strangers while you are actively paying off a massive debt for the privilege of hosting them?
Yeah.
Absolutely. A smaller room full of the right people will always beat a crowded room where you feel like a stranger at your own wedding.
It forces you to deeply examine how you allocate your resources, both your financial resources and your emotional bandwidth. And honestly, it leaves me with a thought that extends far beyond just wedding planning.
Oh, where are we going with this?
If we take these concepts, this idea of establishing an honest ceiling and ruthlessly protecting an A-list based on genuine connection and shared standards, and we applied that to our everyday lives, how much would change?
Ooh, I really like that.
Think about it. Think about how we spend our weekends, who we give our limited energy to after a long, exhausting work week. Are we overbooking the guest list of our lives just to avoid the temporary, fleeting guilt of saying no to a coffee date or a draining social obligation? How much more intentional and frankly fulfilling would our entire social lives become if we budgeted our daily energy as strictly as we've just advised budgeting a wedding?
That's going to keep me up at 2 a.m. in a completely different way.
Really?
On a ceiling of our daily energy. Are we filling our days with B-list obligations while our A-list priorities, our partners, our passions, our rest, get whatever scraps of energy are left over? That is a profoundly challenging way to look at it.
It's all about intentionality, protecting your peace by defining your boundaries and not apologizing for the math of your own capacity.
Well, to everyone listening right now, whether you are in the chaotic trenches of wedding planning or you are just trying to navigate the crowded guest list of your own life, we hope this deep dive gave you the permission you desperately needed. Permission to trust the math, to embrace the awkward silences, to hold your boundaries, and to protect your peace.
And protect your budget.
And, of course, your budget. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, do yourself a favor, put your phone down, stop staring at the ceiling, forget about Susan, who babysat you when you were 4, and go get some sleep.
You've been listening to Planning Your I Do from You Had Me at I Do. Show notes, planning help, and ceremony support are at youhadmeatido.com/podcast. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and send it to a bride friend who needs answers instead of more stress at 2 in the morning. Thanks for listening.